How you doing, everybody? Vasu Vaddiparty, Casey Freelove, Charlie O. This is the Make the Money and Run Daily Sports Podcast for March 15th, 2021. What a weekend of NBA basketball, NFL free agent signing. Of course, spring training's going on. We're 10 days away, actually 17 days away. I'm sorry, I can't tell what week it is anymore in March. Every year it gets to be this way in March, but spring training and opening day starts on April 1st. And I did spring my clock forward. Thank God for iPhones. They do it automatically. Otherwise, I probably would have slept through the whole first half of the SEC game yesterday. So glad for that. Glad for technology. Glad for everything. But it is NCAA basketball. As I said, this is the Make the Money and Run podcast powered by Stables Media. We're on Facebook Live. We're on the Stables Media YouTube page live. If you miss any of the live broadcasts and you want to get your picks in before Thursday or Friday, please download and subscribe on Apple or Spotify or anywhere you get your podcast. What a weekend. Casey, Charlie, how are you both? Casey, Charlie, start with you first.
Hey, I'm great. I mean, what a weekend of basketball. It was just wall to wall. You know what? I had forgotten how much I missed college basketball. I had not jumped into college basketball this year as much as I normally do. And I just embraced it this weekend and overdosed. And I am so excited about the tournament. I just got a new juice about it that I haven't had, and I'm excited. I just enjoyed myself this weekend with the game of hoops like I haven't had in a long time.
Did you say juice? He did sign with the 49ers for 3 more years, so we'll get to that later. That's NFL free agency. Casey, your weekend, you're back to high school football. You didn't have it all winter, and now in the spring you get high school football back on your local station. How was that? Speaking of juices, that must have been pretty exciting on Friday to call play-by-play again for your high school football team up in Auburn or up in the Sacramento area.
Yeah, it was my first game call in 14 months. We hadn't played since December of 2019, the team I call for. And very exciting, a little odd, I will tell you guys. They only allowed 2 guests per player. So we had a total of about 80 players, so only about 200 people on site. And the fun thing is, you know, it takes a little while to get your play-by-play chops when you're doing your first call. And thankfully, both teams combined for 60 points in the first half. So I really got my feet to the fire and enjoyed that. And then, of course, transitioned into a great weekend of hoops. Really enjoyed everything. Competitive, close games, the SEC title game, the Big Ten title game. And I think that the one thing that I love as a gambler is that every prognosticator in America has picked Gonzaga to win the title. So I can tell you exactly where my money will not be when I head to Reno this weekend.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Hey, one thing here, you mentioned play-by-play here real quick before we get into the hot basketball going on this week. Do you ever since we got into this business, do you find yourself talking to the TV and like calling games in your head and calling games like you see something on TV or you see a basketball game and you're going right side pass, 20-footer good? I think I still do that in my head automatically. I think Casey's still doing play-by-play, probably does that a little bit in his head as well too.
Yeah,
it doesn't make us crazy, folks. It doesn't make us crazy, folks. It just makes us try and fine-tune our craft. All right, well, that's enough about our personal inside our head situations here. But this is the Make the Money and Run podcast powered by Stables Media. Again, thanks to everybody on Facebook Live, Stables Media YouTube page live. If you have any comments, if you have any questions about the tournament, the play-in games will start on Thursday this week. All 4 games will be on Thursday. And then the tournament itself, the round of 64, will go Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And might as well give you the scheduling update right now. We're going to do a Monday and Thursday show so that we get in. Probably none of us are going to be in any condition by Friday morning to do anything on Friday as far as the tournament starting at 9 o'clock in the morning West Coast time. We may, if I can get these other 2 to come on at midnight Eastern on Thursday night to preview the entire field of 64. If I can, Charlie will have some more sodas. Casey will be somewhere in the vicinity of Sacramento, so we should have it all broken down by Thursday and give you all the winners and give you all the point spreads. One bit of advice as you go into the tournament for both Casey and Charlie, and I know they do this as well too. Do not follow, especially in this year after not having been there for a year with college basketball. Do not go by the front of the names of the jerseys this year. When it comes to point spreads, there are a lot of point spreads that are, as the kids say, out of whack right now from what I understand and from what I've seen. So let's just get into it right now. Let's start with the first 4 right now as we get into it. Here are the matchups for the first four. 2 16 seeds, Texas Southern, Mount St. Mary's, Appalachian State, Norfolk State. They're the 16 seeds. The Texas Southern and Mount St. Mary's game, they're going to be playing Michigan on Saturday, and then Appalachian State and Norfolk State will play Gonzaga on Saturday. So there's no lines yet. When you see the lines at the bottom of the page, there's no lines yet for Gonzaga, Michigan, BYU, or USC as far as point spreads go, because they're waiting for these winners. So Casey, I'll start with you. Some of these conference tournament games were unbelievable, but Texas Southern, Mount St. Mary's, Appalachian State, Norfolk State. What do we make of these games to start real quick?
Well, again, I have plays that I make every year, and what I look for is the team with the worst record getting points, and that's the bet I'll make. So I'm already on Mount St. Mary's at 12-10, getting 2 against Texas Southern. I can almost guarantee you they'll win that game, because it's a case where the kids that have the worst record typically weren't the 1 seed in their tournament. They've been playing in playoff mode since 2 weeks ago, and they've got that mental mindset. And you see it every year. I mean, maybe on Thursday I'll go and dig out the scores, but this only applies to the 16 matchups, by the way. This is not for the 11s, but I always look for the team that is coming in hot, that has a bad record, and has just figured out a way to get it done. And I'm not going to pretend I know anything about the 4 schools that are rated 16th. I didn't watch them play in their tournaments. I'll certainly handicap it when it comes time for plays on Thursday, but that's just a bit of general advice. And then getting back to your point you just said, watch the names on the front of the jersey. I mean, Drake is a team that's good. They did lose their best player, though, and I know that 25-4 record makes you think, well, why the heck are they getting 2 points against Wichita? Well, because Wichita plays in a legitimate conference, the Missouri Valley, and they had to battle, and they've had some wins, including against a top 10 ranked Houston team this year. That point spread seems about right to me. And then the hardest game to pick of all out of the 4 is UCLA and Michigan State, because I can make a case that Michigan State has beaten 3 of the top 10 teams in the country in their conference, but I could also make the case that they didn't play very well in their last game out, and I'm not sure if they even want to be there. As far as UCLA, another major upset on their hands, Charlie, in the tournament of the Pac-12, which was just absolutely insane. Kudos to Oregon State for bid stealing along with Georgetown. But I think if you're, in these opening games, if you want to look at them, the one thing I will say, Chuck, we've seen it year in and year out, one of these 11 seeds is going to do damage in your bracket, so you better be right on that first pick.
Yeah, the 11 seeds are always dangerous. I mean, the 11 and 12 seeds, you got to figure those out to make your brackets work going through. And I think this UCLA Michigan State game, I've got big expectations for that game just from an entertainment standpoint, but I think it's going to be a tough game to handicap. I saw that and I go, man, they're just going to make me work right out of the box on this one. And I have to tell you right now, my initial lean, and I won't give you my final lean until Wednesday, but my initial lean right now is to UCLA, just based on what Casey was saying, where Michigan State has been. And I also agree. I don't really know that they want to be there right now as a play-in team, which is crazy. You ought to be happy you're in, but some teams will get that way of, hey, we shouldn't have to go through this. Well, you're a basketball team and you ought to be happy you're in the dance and move forward with that. But I think that's going to be a heck of a team game. And I also am going to be interested in that Drake Wichita State game. And I know a lot of people are really liking Drake because of the way they've played, but I also agree with the fact they're short a player. And somehow that Wichita State team always shows up in the tournament, and they always cause havoc in the first and second rounds. They just, they get in there and they're from Tornado Alley, and they seem to create that kind of devastation in that first and second round in the tournament. And they always scare me. So watch the Shockers. That they live up to the name very frequently in the tournament.
Vasu Vaddiparty, Casey Freelove, Charlie O. This is the Make the Money and Run podcast. We're previewing the NCAA tournament, the play-in games on Thursday. A little different format. It's all going to be in Indianapolis and Indiana, as we know, because of the travel restrictions and the COVID restrictions. The conference breakdown: the Big Ten had the most teams, 9. ACC, SEC, Big 12 had 6. Pac-12 had 5, surprisingly. The Big East had 3. The WCC, Mountain West, Missouri Valley Conference and the American had two. The Drake and Wichita State game. Drake came from the MVC, Wichita State, the American, and then UCLA from the Pac-12, Michigan State from the Big Ten, and then we said who's going to play who as far as Saturday. Norfolk and Appalachian State are going to play Gonzaga. The winner of that game will play Gonzaga, and then Mount St. Mary's, Texas Southern will play Michigan on Saturday. The brackets, the number one seeds ranked in order: Gonzaga, Baylor, Illinois, Michigan. Casey, are we all right with that ranking 1 to 4?
Yeah, I think that sets up the way that it probably should. I'm good with the way that they secured it, and those are probably on paper the 4 best teams. Now, obviously, when you're filling out your bracket, you've got to have at least one seed in the Final Four, and I'm not saying that Gonzaga isn't completely potential of doing that, considering that they've already beaten the 2, the 3, and the 4 seeds in their own region, and they scored a ton of points against each one of those clubs. So I think the Bulldogs are in good shape as far as, navigating those waters. I'm really high on Illinois. I'll be putting a future bet in on them before everything tips off on Thursday. That's one of 2 teams I'm going to ride with, along with Oklahoma State. I'm not going as heavy as I typically would in the past with future bets. I like to kind of layer it over the course of a year. But with the COVID craziness, I haven't really had a chance to feel that this year. I mean, I can't say that there's one team that I think for sure has a great chance to win it. But based on the way that the Illini played in the Big Ten tournament and really against Ohio State, who was certainly game yesterday, I think they're red hot. Look, Baylor is Baylor. I think if the 3 of us could go back and this was a non-COVID season, we might be talking about them as the undefeated and number 1 team coming in. And Charlie, let's not sugarcoat it. Baylor has played a much tougher schedule than Gonzaga. You can say that the Bulldogs had a great preseason slate, and yes, they did, but that's like 5 months ago. Who gives a crap about that? Baylor's playing against some dogs: Oklahoma State, Texas, Texas Tech, legitimate contenders night in and night out. Yes, they fell in the tournament, the conference tournament, but I think they finally shook off that rust we've been talking about for 2 weeks, and they are going to be a dangerous team, and I think they like their draw as well.
Well, first of all, a lot of teams fell in their conference tournament. I mean, let's be honest. The conference tournaments were full of surprises, and not just for Baylor, but also when you're talking about Gonzaga. I have 3 letters to bring up to you. BYU. I mean, that game, if that didn't tell you that Gonzaga can be beat, you weren't watching the game. And don't blindly just go in and say, well, obviously they're the guys, and put it down and expect to get $1.80 back on that. That's exactly what the books were wanting you to do. As a matter of fact, I was listening to some guys today saying, look, when you look at the 1 to 64, as they're listing them on the different things, how they listed them coming out of the way the committee listed them, that's not the way they're listed at the books in Vegas and in New Jersey. They have them listed differently. So you can't just take those bets the way the committee listed them and make your handicapping, because that's not the way they've got them handicapped in the sports books. So you've got to look at it, and you've got to start thinking for yourself, and you got to start doing some research, because that's not the way they've got it going down. And you've got to look at it a little differently, because that's how they make their money, because they rank them differently.
Vasu Vaddiparty, Casey Freelove, Charlie O here. Let's look at the first 4 out. And the reason I bring up the first 4 out, it's very significant for this year's tournament because of the COVID issues. We saw Kansas and Virginia have to pull out of the ACC and Big 12 tournaments last week. So the first 4 out are very big. In this case, Louisville, Colorado State, St. Louis, and Ole Miss are the first 4 teams out. The reason I bring this up is by 6 o'clock Eastern tomorrow night, any teams that have to pull out before that time period, they will be replaced by next man up syndrome. Now, you hear that in football a lot, the next man up. Well, these are the next teams up in case anybody pulls out. Louisville tried to make a case for them to be in. Colorado State also did in the Mountain West. St. Louis had a really good year in the A-10, but they got out early, and Ole Miss in the SEC also got out. So Louisville would be first in terms of any replacement. But after 6 o'clock tomorrow night, any team that tests positive will be out of the tournament, and it will go as a forfeit or an uncontested game, and that team will move on in the tournament. So what about these first 4 out, Casey?
Well, I mean, Louisville's legitimate. They're an ACC team. I think Colorado State maybe should have been ahead of Louisville just based on the way they played down the stretch and beating some of the best teams in the Mountain West Conference. I wouldn't want to see them. St. Louis is a team that just got ravaged by COVID. They only played 20 games this year, and despite their 16-4 record, they're sitting at home. And the Billikens, I mean, they're a decent club. Even Ole Miss out of the SEC played pretty well in the conference tournament. So look, this year is wacky, guys. And again, we're good at betting sports, or we wouldn't be doing a podcast about it or using our own money to do it. But as far as saying, okay, well, if Louisville replaces so-and-so team, then they're automatically a team to look out for. It's going to be a very difficult path to navigate. And again, I'm getting my stimulus check on Wednesday. Thank you, government. I saw that. And I'm looking forward to taking it up there, pretending I never had it. But I'm not saying I'm putting it all on one game. I did want to mention something before I throw it to you, Chuck. I find the Virginia Cavaliers the most intriguing scenario right now, obviously along with Kansas. Now, they have already had their line move a little bit in their game, and they're taking on Ohio. Virginia opened as a 10-point favorite last night when they set the opening odds. Ohio's all the way down to a 7.5-point underdog now, meaning the public loves Ohio because basically they listened to the talking heads on CBS and ESPN last night who let them know, because nobody's seen them play, that they may have a potential NBA player. So now everybody's saying that the Bobcats are the team. And look, they're a good program. They've made noise before. But getting back to my original point, what is going on in Charlottesville? So a kid tests positive after they beat Syracuse. He's a bench player. But now all the guys, because of close contact tracing, have to sit at home. They won't even get on the jet to fly to Indy until Friday night, meaning they're going to have no practice time. This is already a team that literally their entire success rate is predicated on slowing down the ball and rate, pace of play. And they're going against a team that's a polar opposite. So I'm intrigued by all this. I know I'm getting off topic here, Vasu, but I got to go with what I have notes on. And I didn't really study the first four that were missing out on the tournament. I think that Virginia is a very intriguing matchup right now. And Charlie, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they can't go. Who knows what's going to happen in the next few days?
Well, that's the whole key. They may not even be able to go. And that's going to be part of it. But even if they can go, you've got, you have to throw all of those elements in. Even if they can go, how well will they be able to go? Because they're going to go in and they're going to kind of have to hit the tarmac, go to the arena and play. And what kind of effect is that going to have on them when they get there? And as a wagerer, you've got to factor all those things in there. And I know people are going, well, Ohio, they're in the MAC, Well, the MAC's had some pretty good basketball played in it, and traditionally does have some pretty good basketball played in it. So those guys have not seen, it's a mid-major. Let's not overblow it, but it's a mid-major. They see some pretty good teams over the course of time. And then you factor in a team that's going to be having to lay off all week and then come in and hit that. That's some pretty big variables in there that might be worth a little money to go with the dog there.
Yeah, let's move on to Friday's games. Friday's games posted up here, but I want to go back over the weekend. Some of these conference tournament games were really interesting. You ever go to a movie and you know what you're looking at, and you see the stars in the movie, and you expect them to be the stars of the movie, and then all of a sudden there's a character that comes in and steals the scenes? Well, that's what happened this weekend with the ACC and the Pac-12. Georgia Tech winning the ACC tournament, Oregon State winning the Pac-12 tournament. Surprisingly, obviously, in both, they were not going to get into the tournament. I don't think Georgia Tech had a chance to get in, or Oregon State. They stole a bid from, and Georgetown for that matter, Louisville, and Colorado State, and I forgot who was the third one on that list, but whoever those teams were that were right there thinking they were going to get in the tournament got out. So I can always remember the movie scenes that Extra stole the movie from, in terms of the theater. But now we've got these three teams that are in there in Georgetown, Georgia Tech, and Oregon State stealing three bids, Casey, from the weekend. What a weekend it was in terms of conference tournament. What a week it was in conference tournaments.
Yeah, no, I love it. Look, Coach Passner, remember he was on that 97 Arizona championship team. He kind of disappeared a little bit after a stint in Memphis, and then all of a sudden he pops up and he's got Georgia Tech playing amazing basketball. Look, if you talk about leadership, seniors, point guards, things like this, I want Jose Alvarado on my team. Even if I'm Gonzaga, I want Jose Alvarado on my team. That kid has the heart of a champion, and that's exactly what you need when you're going against teams that are supposedly better. And Vasu, I'm a little worried about our quote Seminoles, because you and I have been pretty high on Florida State this year, and they've done nothing but disappoint us in big spots. And that's exactly what they did on Saturday, taking the loss. And that Oregon State was just, I'd say, even more improbable that they would win the Pac-12, Charlie. So look, again, talking about teams that are playing well right now. I don't care what you did in December and January. That does not matter right now. Teams that are hot right now, they've obviously found a balance of chemistry, good play calling, and defensive tenacity, really, in the case of Oregon State, to find a way to steal a bid. And I'm not upset for Louisville or Ole Miss or Colorado State, whatever. Win another game and you probably would have got in. March Madness is not about equity. It's about finding the best team in the nation, which we will do in a few weeks. But I got to say, I loved it. I love to see these upsets flying left and right. I even love in some of the smaller conferences where the not number one seed stepped up and won it. And that's why those teams will be dangerous, because it's not like, we're revealing any details of people who gamble don't know, Chuck, but it's just tried and true every year. If you're peaking at the right time, you will be dangerous in the tournament. And right now, Georgia Tech to me smells like danger.
Yeah, they do. I mean, what a crazy bunch. I mean, they are just, that's a team with hair on fire following their coach. I mean, I love it. I mean, it's like, I mean, he's the closest thing to a recreation of Valvano that I have seen in a long time. just so I love it. It's Vasu and I have a friend, Lynn Konechny, who lives down there in the Atlanta area and is just an avid Tech fan. And he's just going crazy with how they're doing. And it's fun to watch. So yeah, I'm just excited about them as a team, and to see what they're going to do. I got stuck watching that Oregon State game on Saturday night because our station got coerced into carrying the game because we're carrying the tournament, and the network said, "Oh, please carry this game." So I got stuck down there, and I thought, "Oh man, this is going to be a snooze fest." So I turned the game on the TV because I knew I'd go to sleep if I was just listening to it on the radio. And all of a sudden, that turned into a game, and I'm going, wow! And then I was excited about Oregon State. So and again, a team that you can't count out now because all of a sudden they're peaking at the right time. So there you go. You got a team that's got enthusiasm and is ready to rock and roll just at the right time. And that's a factor you got to figure in.
Let me throw something at you, Vasu. Oregon State, by the way, I don't know how we didn't notice this, but guys, they've covered 11 out of 12 games against the number. They are on a tenacious overrun as well. They've covered 6 straight overs. So you talk about a team that's hot coming in against a Tennessee team that I don't think is going to be long for the tournament, in my opinion. We're looking at 7.5, 8 points. Maybe keep your eyes on that one, my friends.
Well, let's look at some of the Friday games that's going on. The lines are up here on our ticker. The other games on Friday are on the ticker scrolling across. We'll switch them around between Friday and Saturday, but let's start with Friday. Casey, instead of going through each game, let's look at the lines right now, and anything you see on the lines in particular that kind of stand out to you.
Well, I did take some notes, although I didn't break it down by day. I was looking at lines.
Yeah, we didn't have enough room on the ticker to put all the visiting teams against. But Baylor's got Hartford. North Carolina has Wisconsin. Villanova, I believe, has there's somewhere around here. Villanova has Winthrop. Purdue has the Mean Green of North Texas. Texas Tech has Utah State. And then Arkansas has Colgate. Florida has Virginia Tech, and Ohio State has Oral Roberts. So they're all on my Friday schedule on my phone here. So any of those lines stick out to you from a line standpoint?
All right, well, let's start with the ones that have moved around a little bit. West Virginia has been bet from an opening number of 10 against Morehead State up to 12.5. I would doubt that anybody that put money on the Mountaineers has watched much of their basketball lately or has seen Morehead State once this year, because I'm not going to pretend that I have. That's a game I'm running away from. I have no feel on that. I mean, Bob Huggins has been trying to win game number 900 for 3 tries now in a row, and it just hasn't worked out well for the Mountaineers. Now watch them flip the script and end up going out there and going crazy. I think that's going to be a fun matchup. I'm really looking forward to the 7-10 between Rutgers and Clemson. I was big on Ron Harper Jr. and the Scarlet Knights early in the season, but they really kind of disappointed in Big Ten play, and they're lucky to be in there at 15-11, in my opinion. Clemson's kind of one of those darlings that almost always gets in and never does. So they're seated a little higher than I would have put them at 16-7. But that's a good line with Rutgers -1. It's pretty much a pick 'em as far as, the competitive nature of that. I'm in love with the Cowboys. I'm betting Oklahoma State to win the whole thing, even though every pundit in the country said that their draw is too difficult for them to make a run. Well, you know who else's draw was too difficult? The 2003 national champion Syracuse Orangemen, led by freshman Carmelo Anthony and Jerry McNamara. And you've got the 1-2 punch with Cunningham and Anderson right now for the Cowboys, and they're red hot. I know they didn't win the Big 12 championship game, but Texas is a good team too, another team I wouldn't fade. We talked about Oregon State and Tennessee a little bit ago. Not sure that I could bet on the Volunteers -7.5. That seems like a really high number. Georgia Tech, Loyola, Chicago should be a hell of a matchup. And, of course, Loyola, no strangers to making a deep run. I'm just kind of giving you my overall take here. Also, Utah State and Texas Tech, the Red Raiders -5, and that total at 131.5. I think it's going to be difficult for either team to win by close to double digits because of that total. I think that's a good number at 131. Expect a low-scoring game because, well, basically Tech is based on tempo. And then the other thing to look at, Chuck, one of the best teams, a team, again, that I'm betting in the madness, Illinois, 22.5, though, against Drexel. The thing I think I like the best about the 1 seeds, it's very difficult to lay 20 points in any game, but typically you can find a first half line that's soft among the 4 number 1 seeds. You can bet that one. They'll be up by 25.5. So there's a lot of different things out there. I didn't even touch on Colgate and Arkansas, which I think is a hell of a matchup. And I don't think that the Raiders are necessarily a 14 seed at 14-1. So it's going to be quite a kickoff. Fireworks flying all over Indiana.
Yeah, that Colgate Arkansas game, there ought to be a prop bet on first to 100 there in that game. I mean, that would be the fun one to have a little money on right there. That because there's going to be no defense in that game. That's for sure. Interestingly enough, when you're starting your wagers, be careful with the hype. Okay, because there's a lot of guys out there that are doing analytical work that aren't going to be wagering, that are trying to create hype for games. One of the games that they've already been creating a lot of hype over is this Villanova-Winthrop game. And I've already heard a ton of people saying, oh man, Villanova's in huge trouble with Winthrop. Well, I've got to sit down and look at it a little farther, but it's Villanova, okay? One of the finest coaches in all of college basketball and a program that plays good basketball. And it's Winthrop, a mid-major. Now, that doesn't mean they can't knock them off. But, don't start going to throw a ton of money at Winthrop, especially right now because they're only getting +6.5 in this game. So don't go run out and go, hey, everybody says Winthrop's going to upset Villanova. Settle down a little bit. Calm down a little bit and take a look at these things. Just because a couple of experts are bracket experts are telling you that, you need to take a look at how these things traditionally go. Yeah, there's going to be a few upsets and there's going to be some plays that'll be worthwhile, but you got to look at that and you got to not get carried away. The other one that was driving me nuts was that Oklahoma State Liberty game. I actually heard some guys today talking about Liberty upsetting Oklahoma State. And I thought, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? I mean, Liberty was my football team. I fell in love with those guys during the football season, and I have nothing against Liberty at all. But OK State, I mean, for heaven's sakes, have you watched that team play basketball? They're awesome. They're awesome. So, use some common sense. Use some common sense. Don't get wrapped up in the hype. This is where you've got to start doing some research. Sure, you're going to take some chances. I mean, that's where you're going to make some money. But do some research. Don't get caught up in some bracketology guy's hype about what's going to happen and upsets. Okay, you got to use some common sense.
Well, I'll give you one sentence on each of the games that I think are going to be interesting. Virginia Tech, don't sleep on Virginia Tech. I've been on them all year. Florida has shown that that they're very up and down. Sometimes they score, sometimes they don't. Defense has been in and out. Mike White there. So Virginia Tech getting a point there. Colgate and Arkansas, Charlie said it right. First to 100. Absolutely. Utah State, Texas Texas Tech. That's going to be that's going to be a slow-paced game. The over-under 131.5. Look at that for that. Don't sleep on Oral Roberts against Ohio State. Ohio State given 16.5 in terms of point spread. And then Georgia Tech, Loyola Chicago. You don't know which Loyola Chicago team is going to show up. Georgia Tech, of course, just won the ACC, stole a bid from one of the teams, probably Louisville, in that regard. And then Tennessee 7.5 over Oregon State. I don't think Oregon State can keep up with Tennessee in that same frame. Wisconsin, North Carolina. I really like Wisconsin. I like the way they play defense. North Carolina has been too shaky. They've got one big win right now, and that's a win. That's a win against Syracuse. They lost to Syracuse on the road, but then they got the win at home. Houston, Cleveland State. That's a -20 for Houston, or 19.5, depending on where you have it. Cleveland State's pretty good, but boy, the way Houston plays, they're really good from that standpoint. San Diego State, Syracuse, another one that's going to be an interesting game. And then don't sleep on Winthrop. I know Charlie just talked about Villanova. No Gillespie, James Earl Robinson still hurt knee. Jay Wright not playing in the game. He's just coaching the game, Charlie. And Winthrop can score, and they can and they can move the ball around. So 6.5 points for Villanova is going to be a little tough for me right now as of today. But that'll all come through as we move on to Saturday. Vasu Vaddiparty, Casey Freelove, Charlie O. This is the Make the Money and Run podcast. Thanks to everybody on Facebook Live and the Stables Media YouTube page. Have to put this guy up for a comment. Terry Harkey, my former baseball coach, dad of Jason Harkey, played a year with the Cubs, 4 years in the big leagues. Not by my coaching, but certainly by his dad's batting cage and all the stuff that went on. So Terry Harkey, nice to hear from you. Hope you're doing well. When I did play, I played in 68 for KVOE radio for Emporia State basketball games. My favorite call was Swisheroo for 2. Still make that call today. And then my response was, "You did that when I pitched." And then he said, "Yes, right on for the line drive past my head." So I have to shout out Terry Harkey for that. So thanks for watching. If you missed any of the live broadcasts, you can download and subscribe on Apple and Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Let's move on to Saturday's games here. Pretty interesting. As we said, Michigan and Gonzaga wait to see who they win, who goes for their win. Saturday's games, Oklahoma State or Oklahoma, Creighton, West Virginia, Kansas, Oregon, Iowa, and LSU are all favorites. Colorado's a 5-point favorite over Georgetown. Oregon is 5.5 over Virginia Commonwealth. Kansas 10.5 over Eastern Washington. Virginia 7.5 over Ohio University, and Creighton 6.5 over UC Santa Barbara, and Oklahoma -2 against Missouri. So what sticks out to you, Casey, on these Saturday games, knowing that we don't have a line for Michigan or USC yet?
Well, Santa Barbara seems to be another sexy pick as far as what I was watching with the pundits. And again, I love the pundits because basically I listen to them, I write down what they like, and then I bet against it. Santa Barbara has moved from a 10-point dog to a 6.5-point dog against Creighton. I don't know why everybody's hate. Have you watched Creighton play? I mean, you talk about a team that is so perfectly dispersed between the size of their point guard, their other guard, their forwards, and then having a legit center. That's a matchup nightmare as far as I'm concerned. I don't think a team from the Big West is necessarily going to threaten them. In fact, one gambler put a whole bunch of money on Creighton to win the whole thing at 20-1 just yesterday. I'm not saying that I'm picking them to go that far, but I think they're legitimate. Another line that's moved a little bit, and this gets back to that COVID talk we were discussing. Eastern Washington, the Big Sky champion, has gone from a 13-point dog to open, now down to 10.5 against Kansas. Right now, guys, I can't make a case to play the Kansas or the Virginia games just because I don't know what members of the team are even going to show up. I know on paper they're both very good programs. They're both programs that have won national titles within the last 20 years. But the bottom line is these are very tough to handicap if you don't know who's going to be on the court. And also, even if they are at full strength, having a couple games away from each other and being on the road at a neutral site, that can't be good for team chemistry and just the basics of play calling. I'm intrigued by the Georgetown-Colorado game because I like the Buffs. That's based on a lot of Vasu discussion this year. But Georgetown, look, I love what Patrick Ewing did. They're 13-12. They're the What About Us team. They were like 250-1 like 10 days ago to win March Madness. And now they've got as good a chance as anybody. Winning the Big East is no easy task. I don't care if Villanova was out. Guys, they earned it, and they found a way to come together. the whole Saturday slate is pretty good. I'm excited. I'll be up in Reno gambling on these games. We'll see who USC has to play. Iowa's got Grand Canyon. Can't say I know much about Grand Canyon. Also, Maryland, UConn. That's a good matchup. The Huskies are a legitimate contender. Don't forget the last time they won the national title, they were a 7 seed. They're a 7 again this year. A lot of people like to pick 10s over 7s. I don't see it going that way, and I like the Huskies. And my last point before I throw it to Chuck, I know it says Alabama football, but we are a championship school according to head coach Oates, and well done by the Crimson Tide. Their 7th SEC title in basketball. By the way, if you're keeping track at home, that's only second to Kentucky, who has 31 of them. But hey, that's pretty cool for the conference tournament championship. This is Bama's highest seed ever, tying the 87 and 02 squads. They're a number 2 in the region. And Herbert Jones with that game winner against LSU. I love it. Everybody's going to be saying, oh, we love Rick Pitino. Rick Pitino has a pretty checkered past. Iona's not a great team, and Alabama is going to light them up.
Charlie, before you get into your Saturday games, I just want to tell you, you know who gives Georgetown a chance to win the whole thing? Marquette, Villanova, and Creighton. Based on the way they play, there's no doubt about it. Well, what a week that Georgetown had. What a week that Oregon State had, beating UCLA and beating Oregon, their crosstown rivals, and beating Colorado. Those aren't easy tasks to do, and give Oregon State and Creighton credit. And we know that March Madness and all the networks are going to give them props based on the fact of what they had to go through it. All right, Charlie, go ahead. What do you think on Saturday?
Well, I know the first thing they need to do is they need to not recognize Patrick Ewing at any one of the arenas, because that'll make him upset and get the rest of the team upset.
What a story that was.
But by the way, Casey, Grand Canyon, their biggest thing is the fact that Bryce Drew is their head coach.
Oh.
And so that's and this is the first time they've ever been in the big dance. And this is his first year as their head coach. And so they're looking forward to being there. So that is their big claim to fame. I don't know that they can. I don't know that they can beat that 14.5 number, but they're all excited about that, and they're excited about having Bryce Drew there as their head coach. So that just gives you a little bit of a background on that right there. But Saturday has some interesting looks to it. You know, I've heard some people talking about St. Bonaventure and LSU. A lot of people not believing in LSU. I don't know. I haven't looked that far ahead, to be honest with you, but it's St. Bonaventure. So again, I have a little bit of, okay, it's St. Bonaventure. You know, I that's just my gut reaction, you know, off the top. You know, it's another mid-major Eastern Catholic school. Okay. There's a ton of them. Okay. I mean, I don't mean that in a disparaging way. I grew up in Dayton, Ohio, you know, University of Dayton, another mid-major Catholic school. Okay. There's a ton of them. I grew up around them. So, you know, there's just a lot of those schools, and the Bonnies have always had a good program, but I don't know that they're big enough to knock off an SEC school at this point. Creighton, you know, everybody's looking at Creighton going, well, you know, Georgetown dispensed with them pretty easy. I know there's been all that crazy stuff going on with the coach and what he said and everything else. I don't know. I don't know where to put them at this point. I don't know what to do with them. I don't know whether the team's recovered. It's one of those situations where you got to feel like the coaches are going to be there after the end of the season. They make me nervous. And yet on the other hand, Santa Barbara is a Big West team. Big West teams do lousy in the tournament. I mean, just traditionally, they do lousy. So, you know, if you made me go to the window right now, my money would go to Creighton. So that's you know, as I look at that there, Florida State, I like. Just as I look down that way, you know, go like Texas. I'm in love with Texas, by the way. I'm just in love with Texas. They're playing they're playing great basketball right now. I think they could mess their side of the bracket up a lot because they're just playing great basketball. I'm a Shaka fan to start with, and I think they're playing great basketball, and they could screw that side of the bracket up a lot because I think they could go deep in that. So I think it'll be fun.
Vasu Vaddiparty, Casey Freelove, Charlie O. We'll get to a lot more March Madness on our Thursday show, 4:15, 1:15 Pacific on Thursday. Let's move over to the NBA here for a few minutes. What a night in the NBA. Last night and over the weekend, the Warriors on Steph Curry's birthday end up beating the Jazz. The Jazz have lost 3 out of 4. The Oklahoma City Thunder beat the Memphis Grizzlies 128-122. How about the Philadelphia 76ers? They get 46 points in the third quarter yesterday and just dropped the San Antonio Spurs, my favorite bet of the day. The only 2 unders on the day yesterday, actually 3 unders on the day, were the Raptors Bulls. The Raptors don't have 5 guys. Cleveland is short of guys. They lose to Atlanta 100-82. And then the Miami Heat, Orlando Magic, they stayed under 207. Miami, 10 out of 13, I think, 102-97. Saturday's games, the Knicks beat the Thunder. The Nets did not cover against Detroit, and yet San Antonio gets beat by 43, and San Antonio's road favorite tonight San Antonio's a road favorite tonight at Detroit. Go figure on that. The Kings lose to the Hawks on Saturday. The Trailblazers come away with a win over Minnesota, 240 points there. And then the Indiana Pacers, you can't figure them out. They go into Phoenix on Saturday night and beat the Phoenix Suns. So you see the lines going across the ticker and also today's lines. Let's talk a little NBA here. Brooklyn Nets and the New York Knicks play tonight. 8.5, 223. Kevin Durant still not playing. I talked about San Antonio -2, Casey, at Detroit, giving 2 points after getting dropped yesterday in Philadelphia. Denver has Indiana tonight. They're a 4.5-point favorite. The Pelicans finally played defense yesterday a little bit, but the Clippers gave up 135 points last night, late night, to New Orleans. That over looked very easy at 233 as I had it. They're 1.5 points at Dallas. Phoenix right back to 7.5 against Memphis. And then the Lakers come into San Francisco to play the Warriors at Chase. They're giving 2.5 points. Still no Anthony Davis. 224 the total. The Warriors, Jekyll and Hyde team, getting blown out Thursday night by the Clippers and then coming back to win against Utah on Sunday. What's your take on the NBA going into this week, specifically tonight?
Well, 2 interesting lines today. The Clippers just looked lifeless, especially once they knew they were out of it. That entire fourth quarter, they just looked like they were running up and down the court and going through the motions. Now, it's rare that LA loses back-to-back, but I find that line a little suspect with the Clippers -2 because of the way that Porzingis has really helped elevate Dallas since he's been back. They're also a pretty good team at home, 10-8. I mean, considering they're only 20-17 overall, they've done a good job of kind of rallying a little bit. So that's a game I'd keep an eye on. As far as the Warriors, they're in a tough spot because you just played the best team in the NBA, and now you got it, record-wise, and now you got to play, maybe the 4th or 5th best team in the NBA tonight. That's why the Lakers are 2.5-point favorites. Again, we'll have to see what the lineup looks like as far as who's healthy for LA, but expect LeBron James to come out and play his butt off. The Lakers really need to pick it up. The funny thing is we blast them. They're 25-13 overall, but you know what matters in the playoffs? Winning on the road, and they're still 13-5 away from Staples. So they're a very good team as far as away from home. Another thing, Chuck, before I throw it to you, this might be the only time in this show we've ever seen this. This is amazing. I'm looking at the Eastern Conference standings if the playoffs were to start today. 6 of the 8 teams are on multiple game winning streaks. And by that, I mean they've won 3 in a row or more. That's pretty impressive. There's no team in the top 8 in the East right now that has gone worse than 6-4 over their last 10. I don't think we've said that at any point in the recent past, except for maybe when LeBron was with the Cavaliers. Now, contrast with the West, you've got a bunch of teams kind of struggling a little bit. Lakers 4-6 in their last 10. Clippers 4-6 in their last 10. Portland as well. And then the Spurs 5-5. The hottest team remains the Phoenix Suns at 8-2, and they've just been on a tear. I love what they're doing down there. But I think Adam Silver's got to be sitting back and smiling a little bit because he has brought parity to the association. And I think before yesterday, a lot of people would have been saying, well, the Jazz are still the class of the league. And then you go and get blown out, and I mean destroyed by the Warriors on Steph's birthday. I got to say, guys, as a fan of hoops, I love it. And if one thing could distract me from March Madness this week, it is the way that the NBA is just so wild right now as we start the second half.
Yeah, I think it's fun. I mean, when everything was so tilted one way, it was getting boring, frankly. And I'm glad to see it. I'm glad to see some parity coming and things getting a little normalized out. And I think it's going to even things are going to shift a little more with the trade deadline coming up. We've got trade deadline coming up on March the 25th, which seems like it was very far away, and now just not that far. We're just a little over a week away from the trade deadline coming. So there's going to be some things heating up there, and that's going to shift balances a little bit. So yeah, I think we've got some fun things coming in the NBA, and I like what's going on. I got to tell you, I watched the highlights back again several times of that New Orleans Clippers game last night, and I'm just going, where did the Clippers leave themselves? I mean, their bodies showed up, but there was no spirit or soul on the floor with that team, and I don't understand that. I can't understand how you can be that talented and that touted and show up in that building and not play. It doesn't make any sense to me. And I mean, I know, we're holding up for the playoffs and all that kind of stuff. Man, you gotta take a team that's, that I know they're talented, but they're not that talented. That's the kind of team you got to take to school, and they got schooled last night, and that wasn't good.
No doubt about it. Philadelphia 76ers still leading the East 27-12. They got that 34-point victory over San Antonio. Brooklyn plays tonight. They're in second. Milwaukee in third. Only 14 losses. They're two back of the Sixers. And then Miami, who's the hottest team in the league right now in the East. Miami, Boston, Charlotte, New York, and Atlanta. And then Indiana, and Chicago are 9-10 in the conference. Chicago got a win over Toronto last night. In the West, Utah, Phoenix, Lakers, Clippers, Denver, Portland, San Antonio, and Dallas, with Golden State and Memphis being the 9th and 10th place teams in the West right now. So it'll be interesting to see what we've got going in the NBA as far as games tonight. I'm looking at the Pacers. I'm looking at the Pacers and Suns game tonight, because Indiana has played bad during the year, but then they've had good games like they did against Phoenix. I would have never thought they'd have gone into Phoenix the other day and beat them on the road, but they did. And now Memphis comes into Phoenix. So I got a feeling Phoenix may turn that on. The Warriors, like I said, are a Jekyll and Hyde team. They lost to the Clippers, got blown out on Thursday, and then they come back and beat Utah. Utah lost 3 out of 4. The Washington Wizards, I don't know what kind of defense they're going to play against the Bucks tonight. Bucks are favored by 8.5. That totals at 242.5. The Kings and Hornets, their total is 239.5. I'm fascinated by Charlotte. I just don't know why I'm fascinated by Charlotte, because I think they have good nights where they can play. And then they were even talking on TV last night with regards to the Pelicans case. If they play defense with that offense, they can score. If they play any kind of defense, they can put themselves in a better position to either get into the play-in rounds or to get into the top 8 and not have. I'm sorry, the top 6 and not have to play in those play-in games. I don't know if that's probably too far away to go. And then the Knicks and Nets are always interesting because it's New York. And Clippers Mavericks, I guess we'll see what kind of Clippers team comes out tonight after what happened last night. And then that's pretty much all the games in the NBA right now. The Bucks and Wizards are kind of interesting. Like I said, Washington's still there. They're very good offensively, and they can score, but they can't stop anybody. Actually, you know what? Either one of you guys, Casey and Charlie, find me a team that does play any defense in this league, and we'll take the unders in that game, because right now it's all over. It's all over for me. They're very rarely. Last night was very rare when I took an under on the Miami Heat Orlando Magic game, and that game even came close to being the total of 207 because they scored a ton of points in the second half. So, Casey, as far as tonight goes, from a standpoint of favorites or overs and unders, what looks good to you tonight from today's slate?
Well, I'm still rapidly searching to find a team that can play defense. The Lakers leading the league at 106.2 points allowed per game. That is just so insane. Some of these guys from 10 years ago have got to be just scratching their heads going, what the hell happened to the association as far as having defense? It almost feels like an all-star game at times in stretches when you're watching these contests. But tonight's slate, look, it's tasty. I've got a play that I'll be in on, and we'll talk about that when we get to plays in just a little bit. But you're right. And the thing is I think Vasu and Charlie, a lot of times as gamblers, we get caught up in this mindset. okay, well, the morning slate or the early afternoon slate on a Sunday saw like 5 out of 6 overs hit. So it's definitely got to be unders on the evening session. I saw a friend of mine online yesterday who was big on the Pelicans under in their game against the Clippers. The Clippers didn't even show up, and that game went over with like 7 minutes left, and the total was 233. I mean, it was just chaos. So as far as finding defensive consistency, we're certainly wanting for it. I would love to take a time machine and go back there and just show the first 2 totals tonight to any NBA player. Kings Hornets, over under 240. Bucks Wizards, over under 242.5. And then now I've got myself questioning because I know the Knicks actually do play a little defense, but that Brooklyn total seems a little, quote, low at 223.5, considering what Harden can do when he wants to. That guy can go for 60 and get that total over maybe by himself. I'm kidding a little bit, but the bottom line is betting totals this year has not been an easy task. It seems like most numbers are settling somewhere in the 220s, which is something we're not accustomed to. As far as games I'm looking forward to watching, Clippers, Mavericks, I think that one's great. Lakers, Warriors to see how Steph bounces back. And then just for kind of, shits and giggles, pardon my French, Bucks and Wizards, because Washington may not win a lot, but they are very fun to watch. I love the Beal-Westbrook combination. They put up a ton of points. And that line again at 242.5, most years you'd be like, I can't play this thing. That's ridiculous. Well, Charlie, I think I could talk myself into playing it by the time they tip it off at 4 o'clock tonight, West Coast time.
Yeah, guys, it's crazy. I mean, I was watching the scores the other night, and then there was a game. I can't remember what the game was. There was a game that wound up, I don't know, 94-87, and I thought, gosh, it was an actual NBA game.
I can't believe you don't remember that game because it's like the only one of the whole year.
Yeah, I know, but
well, each team plays 82. There's a lot of games.
We do so many games. It just, but it's just nuts. It's just nuts. And I like some of the things they're talking about. They're talking about doing 2 things right now that I think would be, that would make the game more interesting. One of the things they've got to do is they've got to widen the court. They've been talking about doing that for the last 15 years, and it would make things more interesting. And the other thing is you got to move the 3-point line back. If you're going to live and die by the 3-point line, then let's move that 3-point line back. If you widen the court, then you're not going to have that short 3 porch anymore. And you're going to have a real 3-point shot from down in that corner. You're going to be able to widen those lanes up. And hang on, guys. I'll be right back here. Hang on.
Sure.
And let's see. Where did I go here?
We're talking about widening the court.
There we go.
We're talking like EuroLeague style, like Olympic style, because I think the one thing that they have to do, guys, they do need to take a look, Charlie, at that 3-point line, because it is just ridiculously easy right now. We saw in the All-Star game, these guys are shooting it from inside the half court stripe and still making it.
Yeah, and widen that lane up a little bit, and do some things to create to slow down this point barrage. One of the things I'm for too, the clock reset, when you get a rebound now and they go back and they only give you 14 seconds to shoot. Why? And if they want to do that under 2 minutes, I'm for that. Okay. That'll keep things moving along a little more, but during the course of the regular course of the game, reset that clock to 24. Let's get the game back to being a little more of the game. Because I don't think that for fans to enjoy it, I don't think you have to score 160 to 150 in a game for fans to enjoy the game. Not if you're playing decent basketball. Because right now it becomes unenjoyable half the time.
This portion of the program brought to you by Lawnmowers, Electric Mowers for Charlie O to get off my lawn from that statement. So yesterday, so a couple of things from yesterday. The Houston Rockets proven that they can be the worst team, 134 to 107. They give up 134 points to the Boston Celtics. They get 107 points back. And of course, that to me right there is telling you all you need to know about the Houston Rockets coming into tonight. All right. Facebook Live, Stables Media, YouTube page live. Download, subscribe on Apple and Spotify. If you missed any of the live broadcast, we'll be back on Thursday, 4:15, 1:15 Pacific. Let's spend the last couple minutes here on picks. Casey, go ahead with your picks today as we move along.
Yeah, I don't know why they're not popping up here. I put in a banner with my picks on them, but anyway. All right. Well, I am doing pretty darn well on the season, guys. I must pat myself back on the back, although I only went 4-3 last week. But 35-18, that's a combination of college and NBA. If you're betting along with me, which I hope some people are, or why are we doing a podcast, you're up 15 units on the season. And I think if I told you that in a COVID short year, you would certainly take that. What does that mean? If you bet $100 a play on all my plays, you're up 1,500. You bet $1,000, you're up a cool 15. Now, as soon as I say that, I'll probably have a disastrous week and lose all my stimulus money up in Reno. But, I'm going to take that chance. Today, I've only got one play. It's in the NBA, and it is my hometown Sacramento Kings getting 3.5. This line opened where it should be as a pick'em in Charlotte. Everybody's riding the Hornets because they're hot. They've won 4 out of 5. But the bottom line is the last time these two got together, it was a close game into the fourth quarter in Sacramento. The Kings match up well against them. Both teams don't really have any injuries to speak of except for Hassan Whiteside, who's a backup center for the Kings. And I think that the De'Aaron Fox matchup against Ball is very intriguing. I think the total might be in play as well. But give me the 3.5 points. I'm not saying Sacramento wins outright, but I think this one's going to be a last shot game. So my one play to start the week, Sacramento Kings plus 3.5 points, Charlie.
And I have one play. My play also happens to be the Sacramento-Charlotte game, except I'm going the other way. I'm going with Charlotte just because I think the Sacramento Kings suck right now, and they don't play well on the road. I thought they played terrible in Atlanta the other night. I don't even know why they got off the bus. They played. I mean, seriously, they played down 20 points almost from the beginning in that game against an Atlanta team that's just not that good. And I don't know what they're doing. I really don't at this point. They don't play any defense. And I think in Charlotte, on the road, playing the way they're playing right now, I'll give 3.5 and take Charlotte. Yeah, I will.
Head to head.
Head to head. Yeah. 2 Sacramento guys, one taking the Hornets and one taking the Kings. So that's fandom right there. All right. I'm also going to go with the Charlotte Hornets. I'm going to lay the 3.5 on Charlotte. The total a little too high, even though I expect that game to probably be in the 260s. I'm going to take Brooklyn tonight. I'm going to lay 8.5 to the Knicks. I just don't see the Knicks keeping up with the Nets offensively, and I think Brooklyn will play enough defense. They're hot right now. I'm going to go with the over on the Denver-Indiana game, over 212. I think Indiana's playing hot right now. They're shooting the ball. Denver at home, they can put up 110 points very easily. And then I'm going to go after losing on Saturday. They have not lost 2 games in a row this year yet this year, as far as my knowledge, as far as my memory goes. I'm going to take the Phoenix Suns laying the 7.5 to the Memphis Grizzlies. So Charlotte minus 3.5, Brooklyn minus 8.5, Denver, Indiana over 212, and then the Phoenix Suns. So 3 favorites and a total for me. I went 3-1 yesterday in the NBA. I had the Spurs. I had the Spurs. I had the under in the Miami game, and I had the Toronto Raptors who lost, and then I had the Clippers and Pelicans over. So 3-1 in the NBA. I've been doing pretty well in the NBA. College has been so. Just to let everybody know, make sure you set your alarm clock because I missed 2 games yesterday because I got up late and they were winners. I had LSU and St. Bonaventure. It's hard enough to win games, and when you don't wake up on time to get winners that you know are going to be winners, you curse yourself all day for it. Still cursing myself 24 hours by the fact I'm putting it on this show to begin with. That's where we're at right now. So make sure you get up early, make sure you know what games you're looking at, and get your picks in. And of course, tune into our podcast Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays. We'll vary our schedule a little bit with the tournament this week. For Charlie O, Casey Freelove, thanks to Facebook Live, thanks to Stables Media YouTube page live. You can download and subscribe on Apple and Spotify or anywhere you get your podcast. That's the Make the Money and Run podcast for Monday, March 15th, 2021. Have a great afternoon. Good luck. We'll see you back here on Thursday. It's March. Cannot wait for the tournament to start this week. We'll see you on Thursday, 4:15 Eastern. Have a great afternoon, everybody. Talk to you soon.